we can get started with the workshop. Cool. So the first thing that you're gonna have to do is open up your terminal. Our workshop today is about giving gratitude and writing gratitude in a journal, but also with command line interfaces. So you're gonna learn how to create your own command line interface and also to read and write from files, how to give like helpful help statements, use flags in command line interfaces and other kinds of fun things like that. So our first step is going to create a directory for our file and our folders. So let's use a command mkdir, mkdir, and I'm going to call my folder CLI, and we're going to make a folder, and then we're going to change directory into that folder, like so. So now you can see here, we are in the CLI folder, and we're in the CLI folder, and we currently don't have anything in it, so that's why ls is showing nothing. But we're gonna open that in VS Code. So I'm gonna use code dot, and it will open up in my VS Code. I think my last window was like a bunch of other stuff, so nothing is in here right now. So this is what you should see. Could I get like a thumbs up from you guys if you are able to get to this point?
I'm a little stuck.
What are you stuck with? Or do you want to just like drop it in the chat? Oh, so do you have like a Windows computer or Mac computer? Or something else? Okay, so in Mac you have something called a terminal app. So you can do command space, I think, and that pulls up Spotlight, and then you type in terminal, and then you'll be able to find it. And then you want to I'd recommend changing onto your desktop, so like CD desktop, and then create your folder, just so that you can see it on your desktop. But otherwise, it just creates it in your home directory. All good? I just want to make sure everyone has like a file to work on. And oh, these are, huh. Hirsch, could you help him debug that? That seems like a very specific issue where the terminal commands are just not working. Which which are you using, ZSH or Bash? Okay, let me give you like a guide and then I'll just like move on to the next step. Okay. Okay, I'll just like send you this real quick and hopefully this will help you resolve your issue. But yeah, we'll just move on with the workshop. So now that we've created this, our next step is going to be to create a requirements.txt, because when we are doing any kind of like Python program, we usually like use some kind of packages. So I think that the most helpful way to manage packages, and this is like also pretty standard in most industry applications, is to create like a requirements file, and then it has like all the names of the packages that are used. So what we're going to use is touch, and we're going to call it requirements.txt, and then in that requirements.txt file, we're going to put in questionnaire, date, time, PyYAML, PyFiglet, plumbum, and ruaml.yaml. I'm just following along with the CLI workshop that's on the website, so if I'm going too fast for you, you're welcome to just reference the workshop documentation. So now that you've created this, and another thing I will say is that I have autosave on, so make sure you have autosave on so you don't have any issues with your code not running properly. And once you do that, you need to install everything in the requirements.txt. So I'm going to use pip, which is a package manager for Python, and install everything. And because I have everything pre-installed in my thing, it's just going to tell me that everything is installed, but for you, it'll take a little bit. So yeah. And Nicholas, to answer your question, you can just open VS Code and open the folder in VS Code. So in this like remote connections, just open it with WSL if you're using a Windows computer. Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. So if everyone's good with this part, we're just gonna move on to the next one. Harsh, if there's any issues, I'd like to request you to help resolve them. But yeah. I will like explain what the libraries do as we go, because I think that's like a little bit easier to understand. But now let's just move on to the next part, which is talking about how the functionality works. So let's just think about like what you typically do when you go out to journal. So first you need to get a journal to write in. And then after that, you need to open the journal to the right page for today. So now I've opened it to the page for today, and then you need to write something in that journal. So once you write something in that journal, then you have to close it. And maybe you want to look at what you saw for like, the other day. So you like open it up to the right page, and then you read it through, and then that's like viewing the next journal. So those are like all the steps that we want to do to create our journal. So let's like translate that into code first before we go and implement stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think you can hear me. So basically for our journal, we need to be able to open it, to write in it, to close it, and to also read the entries inside. So our journal functions in Python are going to be as follows. So open journal will allow the user to get a journal with their name and store it in a location. Add page will allow you to add a page when there is no entry for today, and the person can journal in there. Add content gives the user a prompt to journal and then collects their thoughts. And then read entries allows the user to flip through their digital journal entries. So that's like the functionality that we're going to implement. So first, let's start off with creating a class for our journal. So first, let's create like the actual Python file. So we're gonna call it touch journal.py. Touch just creates a file. So now we have a Python file here. And then we're gonna import plumbum, which is like a shell scripting library. And plumbum allows us to create a nice command line interface, and we can have like many helpful things like flags and version numbers, and it's really great. You should check out the documentation if you want to learn more about it. So now I'm just creating a class. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Can someone give me a thumbs up if they can hear me? I'm sorry. Okay, I think people can hear me. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to create this class, and in this class, we're going to give it a main method, and that is going to take a parameter of itself, and then because every method in the class has to take the self parameter, and then we're going to give it like a little like hello world kind of thing. So I'm just going to say like gratitude journal here. but you could say hello world, or you can give it any greeting that you want. And then we're gonna add an if statement here to run this whenever we run our program. Okay, yeah, so I think the issue is that I just like accidentally delete it. It's like, yep. Okay, so that's what it's supposed to look like. And then we want to run the gjournal class. So pretty much that's it. So to run the program, yeah, I did. Yeah, to run the program, you need to use Python and then the name of the file, so the Python interpreter knows what code to execute. For some of you, it's gonna have to be Python 3. I know for me, it's Python 3 because like I haven't set up an alias on my computer. So yeah, it just prints out a gratitude journal. So could I just get like thumbs up if you guys have this part working, and then we can move on to the next part. And if some of you have issues, Hirsch will help resolve that in the chat. So yeah, thumbs up if you have gotten to this point. Okay, I'm gonna assume that all of you have gotten to the point, because for those of you who have not thumbs up, you are not commenting in the chat what you need help with. So yeah. Cohen, yeah, just check out the write-up, and it has pretty much everything. We're at the point where it says provide help. So for those of you who just came, you can catch up with what's going on. So our next step is to learn a little bit about flags. So this program comes like, Plumbum comes like pre-installed with some flags like this help flag. So you can see all the switches that are there and how to use them. Let me see if I can, yep. So you can see all the switches that are there and some usage for all of them. And as you can see here, also we have a version that comes with this. So let's see what that looks like. And there is not a version set. So I think what we want to do first is create a version, and then we also want to configure the help properly for that. So it's pretty simple. All you need to do is type in like caps version, and then we need to put in the version number. So usually when you're like creating a program, you want to provide a version number so that people know like which version you are on, and then if they have some kind of like bugs, then they can like resolve it really quickly. So yeah, so let's see what happens when we click help now. It's pretty much the same, but you can see that now it's journal.py 0.0. So yeah, it's like the first version, and that's really cool. As you like build onto your journal and like add more features, you can increment the version numbers, and I'm sure there's resources online. I don't remember if I linked them on the guide or not, but it tells you like how to version things properly. So now let's do something else that's like pretty fun, which is like making a fancy like display graphic. So we're going to use the PyFiglet library for this, and if you look at the documentation for it, also linked on the guide, they talk about like what kind of fonts you can use, and what kind of I guess other fancy customizations that you can put in. But I already like pre-selected a font and a color for this, so I'm gonna go pretty fast with it, but you are welcome to take your time. Like the actual running of the program itself. Oh, is it frozen? I don't think it's frozen. Hello? Can you like see this? I don't know. Okay. I was just like typing really slow. Hopefully it works now. Okay, cool. Perfect. So we're gonna just print this, and the constructor says that you have to like use Figlet and then set a font to be anything. I'm using slant. And then you have to do dot render text in camel case, and then you put in the text that you want to render. So that's what we pass in as a parameter. So instead of print, now we're going to do print banner, and then it prints really nicely. So let's just see how that looks real quick, and look at that. The VS Code editor is kind of gross, so it doesn't show up really nicely, but let me just show you guys what it looks like in here. See, you have like that cute little color, so that's always fun. But yeah, I'm just gonna move on to the next step. So if any of you guys are stuck with this, take a look back at the guide. So our next problem to solve is like, how are we gonna manage working with the journal? Because every time we run a Python program, it just like starts all over again, and we don't have any memory of what each of the variables were. So to persistently keep in like track of what our journal is, we need to have like an external configuration file. So what we're going to use for this is a YAML file. So let me just create that YAML file first. So use touch config.yaml, and it creates a nice little YAML file for you. And in here, we're going to have two fields, the author and the journal name. So once you have that created, we can start working on saving and loading our configuration from the config file. So first, we need to import some YAML interpreters. So let's import the default YAML interpreter, and then also a custom one. And I will like explain briefly why we do this a little bit later. I'm just gonna take a sip of water. So I'll explain a little bit like why we do this as we go on later, because it'll make a little bit more sense once you actually write things down. So let's create our first one, which is load the configuration. So for this, we need to save the configuration. So for this, we need to take a file name and a configuration file. So let's call this method save config, and then let's take the file name and the config file, and then we're gonna call it YAML interpreter, and then we're gonna like initialize it using our custom library. And the reason that we want to do this is that we are actually working with like file paths here, and because we are using the change directory thing and we're like working with file paths, we want our file paths to be strings, and we want to preserve the double quotes. So ruraml.yaml just allows us to do that, and otherwise like it would just go away and you would have like nothing. And that's pretty much why we're doing it. I don't think it's like really necessary for most contexts, but now that you know, I guess. So we're opening a file. So when we provide the file name, which is our config.yaml, to this helper method, we are opening that file to write, and then we're dumping our configuration file, which is the second thing here, into this here. And the configuration file is just a dictionary. It's not anything super complicated. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Our next thing is to load our configuration. So before we do that, we need to create some global variables for the author and the journal name. And this is so that we can access this everywhere in the program. Just give me 1 second. So another thing I will say is that every time you write a method, it's really important to test it. So I always like to run Python journal.py to make sure that my code is compiling, I don't have any errors, and everything that I've written works properly. So like this tutorial, I like wrote it out so that you shouldn't have any errors, But as you are writing your own code, it's always a great practice to just test it after each function. So let's just do this real quick. And this one only takes in the file name because we're just loading for the config.yaml thing, and it will save it into our global variables, which is author and journal name. And in here, we just need to call global to access these variables. And the reason we do this is because otherwise it'll create like its own like local copy of the variable, and when you edit the variable in the function, it will stay inside the function and not go outside. So it's really important that you put in this global keyword. So the first thing we're going to do is like a null check, because it's really important to make sure you're covering all your blind spots. So if we don't already have a config file, we have to create it. So if we don't already have a config file at that file name, then let's call our save config, and let's take the file name, and let's give it an entity dictionary that has the author and the journal name. And that's pretty much it. And then now we're going to open the file. To read. And then we are going to take in our data from the file as so, and then we are going to save the author and the journal name. Sorry. And then journal name. So the data is a dictionary, and we're calling the journal name and author keys, and then we're getting the values from that. And one more thing, we need to import OS right here. So just let's do that really quickly, and then run our code to make sure that everything works. And it does, so we're all good. So now when we call our class, we want to make sure that we load our configuration file. So let's just call, let me first like put in our global variables. And then in here, we're going to load our configuration file, config.yaml. In the write-up, it says YML, but out here I'm saying YAML, so make sure that whatever you're doing is correct based on your setup. So, oh, file is not defined. Oh, that's my bad. This is supposed to be file. Okay, compiles, all good. Any questions? I don't think so. So let's move on to the next part, which is creating a journal. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna drink some water. Okay, so when we create a journal, we're basically gonna create a folder in our directory. And once we create the folder, we're gonna ask the user for their name, and then we're gonna generate the journal name from that. And then in that journal, we're gonna create the entry for today. Oh, yeah, sure. So we're gonna create a helper method to just make that folder first, and then we're gonna create the main create journal method, that is. So yeah, and if you like did not catch up with any of the code, all of it's on the write-up. Excuse me. So let's create a helper method first, and this is just to make a folder. So this takes a parameter of the name that you want to name the folder, And then we're going to use a try catch to make sure that we catch any errors that happen. So remember when we did like mkdir when we were creating the CLI folder? So we're using the OS module in Python to create directories in Python itself, and Python tells like your operating system to make a directory. So that's pretty much how that works. The same kind of thing works with, I think, Plumbum. Yeah, Plumbum. The same kind of thing works with Plumbum, but like I kind of just switched between both because there's some things that Plumbum does better, and there's some things that this OS module does better, and I think that Makers is just better on here. So if we have an error, we're gonna print out an f string, and we're gonna tell the user that we created creating the directory folder name failed, so that we know what folder it was that failed to create. And an f string is basically like a formatted string, so you can put in like variables. Okay, yeah. So Plumbum doesn't do like make direct or cd that well, but it does everything else well. So that's why I like to use OS. So yeah, that is sorry, I was like talking about f strings before I went off on the tangent. So f strings basically are formatted strings. You can put variables into them or like do math inside of them. They're pretty cool. Highly recommend using them when it's applicable, and I use them a lot, as you can tell. So now we're going to change directories into the journal name and then add a page. And add page is not defined yet, and we're going to do something like a little trick that I like to do with programming in general is like I like to create like little shell functions and then just put in paths. And the reason I like to do that is because like I know that I'm going to use a helper for something, but I don't want to write out the helper. I don't want to have to worry about testing the helper, and I don't want to have to worry about debugging a helper just to debug the main function. So that's pretty much why I like to code this way, and I recommend that you do too, because I just think that not having to debug 3 methods at the same time is like just a smarter way to go about things. So now that we've created this helper, let's create the create journal method, and then after that we're gonna let me just compile this real quick, and then we're gonna test the entire thing to make sure that it works. So let's create journal, and then sorry, I spelled this wrong. And then we need to call our global author and journal name, and define the author and the journal name. So this is kind of a long thing, and I'm just gonna like copy paste it because I don't want to have to make you guys sit through me typing this. And honestly, it's like kind of a one-off thing. So yeah, it's just that like we're casting the strings to be like a special string object that preserves the double quotes. That's all we're doing here. And remember, the reason that we do this is so that when we're changing directories, we don't have any issues with our file names in the config file. Let me just paste what I just copied onto the Zoom chat so that everyone else has it. And we're also going to import questionnaire real quick because we're prompting the user for some input. So as you can see here, we're asking the user what is your name, and then we're concatenating the author name to the journal. And you can ask the user for a custom journal name, but for the purpose of getting through this workshop, I decided not to. So now we're going to create like a little dictionary to store our configuration file. So we're going to use this dict constructor and set the author to be author and the journal name to be journal name. And then we're going to call our helper to save configuration into config.yaml. So once again, the write-up has YML, but if you're doing YAML, make sure that you call it that. So I'll go in and change that after the workshop, but that was just like a typo. And now that we've called our helper and saved our configuration, we are pretty much done with everything in Create Journal. So just to make sure that everything works properly, I'm just going to call it in here. And see, it asks me for my name, and then it creates this like directory right here. So I don't really want this anymore, so we're going to delete it and get rid of everything in here. But as you can see, it works for me. I'm just going to give you guys a brief moment to get everything working on your end, and I'm going to take a sip of water. Yeah, so YAML files are used to persistently store configuration. So Praneeth, if you have any questions on Create Journal, just take a look at the write-up. So now we're going to move on to the next part, and we're going to create a selection menu and allow the user to choose what kind of functionality that they want to do. So if you remember us talking about like, oh, what are the kinds of things that you want to do with a journal, we want to give the user a choice in like what kind of functionality that they want to do. So we're going to use questionnaire again, and we're going to create like a selection menu. So the first part is a question for the user, and then we have to give them choices. And the choices, I think, are an array of choices. So our first choice is journal. Our second choice is read entries. And then our third choice is to quit. So now that we have these choices, it's going to be stored into this choice variable. And we're going to be able to decide what functionality to, like what functions to call based on what the choice was. So let's think about all the possibilities here, right? So our first one is if they decided to journal. So if choice equals journal, then we need to think about the possibilities here too. So either like right now we don't have a journal and they want a journal, or there's already a journal and they want a journal. So if we don't have a journal, so if journal name is empty, let's create one. And then if it is not empty, then we can open the journal. But if it is empty, we can also open the journal. So that's why we have that here. And then our next condition is to read entries. So if we want to read the entries, we're going to have to create a new method for that because we haven't really discussed that yet. So let's call read entries here, and then we can just create like a shell for that, and then we can fill that in later. And then if we decide to quit, we can just say goodbye to the person. So goodbye, and then that's it. Or you can give it like your own little message, but that's really up to you. So let's just add in the things that we don't already have defined. So open journal is not defined yet, and then also def read entries is not defined yet. I think that's pretty much everything. And let me make sure I didn't miss an import. I don't think I missed an import, so I think this should be fine and this should run. Okay, this is just me typoing. Why is my Olive not working? I'm sorry. oh, indentation, my bad. So let's just indent this, and this should be fine now. And perfect, that works, that compiles. So that's pretty much that part. I'm going to give you guys like a brief moment to get that to work on your end, and we're going to move on to the next part. And our next part is to open the journal. I don't think there are any questions. So if there are more questions, Harsh can take care of that, but we're just going to move on to Open Journal now. So for Open Journal, we are going to use like a formatted like entry title, and you can only edit the entry for each day. So that is like the parameters with which we are creating our journal. Hi Monica, what's up? So let's first put in the date time. Let's import date time. So from date time, import date time. And in here, what we have to do is give it format for today's entry. And because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna like copy paste it from here. But there's like documentation on how you can format dates and times on the internet. So if you don't like this format, you are welcome to change it at your will. So the next thing we're gonna do is basically go through all of the entries in our folder, and then we're gonna figure out which entry is for today. And if there isn't already an entry for today, we're gonna create that, okay? So let's first import the OS module and also the file name match module. So I think we already have OS, but we don't have file name match or FN match. And the reason that we use this is because we want to create a file name that, the reason that we use this is that we want to be able to match file names. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I am in a hotel right now. So, yeah. So, what we want to do is, sorry, I got distracted. So, if we, first we need to change directories into our folder. So, os.change dir, and then our journal name. So this is similar to CD. And then in entry lists, we want to list the directory, so ls, of all the files that are in the directory. So I'm sorry about like kind of being scattered for this part, but I hope everyone understands. If you do not, feel free to ask questions. We have some soft staff in the chat that will be able to answer your question. And then after that, we're going to go through all the entries in our folder, and then we're going to check if the entry matches today's entry. So first, let's do a null check. So if we don't have that entry, we're going to add a new page. We don't have this yet. So with all things, we just create like a little stub. And then for entry in entry list, so we're just like looping through every entry. If the file name match is correct for entry and today entry, we're gonna add content. So the reason that we do this is that we don't want to like erase old content on an entry, but we do want to have users be able to like add multiple like thoughts into the same journal entry. So that's why I decided to make it this way. So def add content, and then that content takes in the entry. So I think what I did was I used title. So, and then we're gonna just put it pass for now so that it compiles. And then otherwise we're gonna add a page. So yeah, I think we already have that one. So we're good to go. That's pretty much everything for the open journal thing. So let's just run this real quick. Okay, so why is this bad syntax? Oh, okay. It's looking at the wrong line. Okay, cool. So cool. Now we have a journal, and I don't know why it's not calling open journal. That is strange. Once we create it, we need to call open journal. Oh, I forgot to add that to the end. My bad. So in the end of your create journal, you need to call open journal. That is so strange. I don't know why that's like not been called. Okay, this is like, I feel like I've got this error before, but I don't know why this happens. And this just only happens when I've done this on my work laptop and not my home laptop. Okay, so okay, I don't think that is supposed to go here. My bad. Okay, now it's like, yeah, I think this has happened before and I don't know why it happens. So I'm gonna just close out the VS Code error and then go back in and hopefully that fixes it. My work laptop is like way more finicky than my home laptop. So when I was testing it on here, sometimes it works and sometimes it's just been bad. Okay, so let's try running it again. Okay, so everything compiles. Yeah. So our next part is going to be to implement the add page. Okay, yeah, so the reason that nothing's really happening is because we haven't really implemented add page. That's my bad on not really saying that. Okay, so in add page, we need to also take in this entry name because every time we like create a page, it's just going to be the same name. And we're going to use this open syntax again. But we're going to use the X flag, and the reason that we do this is because we want to create the entry. And then after that, we're going to print that we have created the entry so that the user knows. So if you guys end up having errors with something, just turn it off and turn it on again, because I think that fixed it for me. But I have tested this code on like both Windows and Mac, so it should work fine. So that's add page. Let me run it real quick. So yeah, it's created the new page. So that's solid. I just have like a bunch of trash journals in here, but I'm not going to delete them for now. So in add content, we want to use this with syntax again. Sorry, did I like cover everything? Yeah, so we want to use the with syntax. And then this time we want to use it as append because we don't want to delete anything that we previously journaled, but we want to add to what we have. So with open, and then we take title, which is just the file name, and then A for append as entry. Then we take in some writing from the user. So out here we can put in like a custom prompt or just what are you grateful for, and then allow the user to just put in what they want, and then that saves into writing. But what I will say is that writing just ends up being like a really long like string of characters, and it's kind of gross looking. So let's just format it nicely. So let's use the text wrap module. Sorry. And then let's take in writing, and then add a new line at the end so that it looks nice. So import text wrap. So yeah, that should be pretty much it for add content. And then also we need to write it to the file. My bad. So entry.write and then prettier writing. So that's pretty much it for this. Let's just run it real quick to make sure that everything works. Okay. Yeah. And okay. T. Why is this not defined? Did this like is a variable name bad? Huh? Oh, okay. That makes sense. You had one John and it's not working. Okay. Why is this not functioning? Okay, let's just try deleting everything. Sorry. My Zoom window just keeps on like popping up in the wrong places, so if I'm being slow, that is because of that. So, and then what are you grateful for? Some random text, and then there we go. That's pretty much like all you really need to make like your very basic gratitude journal. So I'm gonna give you guys like a couple moments to get all of that working, and then we're gonna add in some little bonus features, and that's it. So yeah, take your time, get up to speed with this, and Hirsch will answer any questions in the chat. Okay, so now that we have finished all of this functionality, we want to be able to read our journal entries in a way that's like prettier than before. And before is just like going into this text file, and that's kind of gross. So I'd rather just like do it all from the command line. So let's go in here and let's create a read entries method. So if you guys remember, when we were searching for the right entry to add on to, we changed directories into our journal folder, and then we also listed all of the entries in that thing. So let's just do the same thing again. And because we already did the work, we can just like copy paste it. But yeah, we can just go in, copy paste this. We have to do literally the exact same thing. And then what we're gonna do is first we need to import from questionnaire import prompt, because we're going to create like a custom prompt here, and then we're going to allow the user to choose which entry they want to read, that is. And if you guys are interested in creating custom prompts with questionnaire, check out the documentation. I just like followed it and I was able to get it to work. So yeah. So I'm just using the type, and then I'm giving it a name, and then a message. And then I'm giving it a choices variable, which is our entry list. Okay, and then we just need to put a comment in here because for reasons, according to the documentation. So let's prompt the user with our custom question, and then we're gonna because this is supposed to be like a list of dictionaries, we have to say that we're using the select entry question, also for reasons. So yeah, and then we have to open our file, our entry file, to read as we're just gonna call it E, and then print that out to the console. So that's pretty much it. So let's see if this works. Oh, I forgot comma. That's the issue. Oh, okay. I think I figured out why it's being bad. Okay. T. Why is none of this working? Okay, let's try getting rid of everything in here. Today, technology is just like not cooperating with me. It's just bad. Okay. Literally so bad. Okay, am I missing something? Why is this not? Oh, there it is. Sorry, my bad. You have to put .ask in here. There we go. So we can select journal, and then put in Hirsch as the name, and then put stuff that we're grateful for. OT. Is this like also happening because why is this? Sorry, I like don't know why my computer's not cooperating with me because like I literally ran this entire workshop this morning and it was fine. So yeah. And it's like Windows that I found was like more finicky with this. Mac was like completely fine. Let me just shoot, wrong thing. Okay. Okay, cool. So that's journaling. And why is it not going onto a new line? That is because, okay. And then the next thing we want to try is reading the entries. And wow, we can read it. That's so nice. I don't think that this slash is the right way. And yeah, that's pretty much it so far. Thank you. So our next step is to create, what was it that we wanted to create? Flags, yes. So we want to talk about flags. So remember that I mentioned at the beginning, we had some flags like help or version, let's create our own custom flag. And I think a flag that would be really helpful is that if we could push our like entries onto like a remote place so that it's saved. So like GitHub is a good example. So let's initialize a Git repository in this folder. So I'm just going to do Git init. And now we have some GitHub things that we can use. So I'm just gonna like git add and git commit this. So our commit history is not a mess. And then git commit start. Okay, cool. So now that we've added all the files, let's like first run the journal thing and let's make some changes to our entry. So now we've made some changes. As you can see, VS Code is telling us, wow, there's like new things in here. And I think that my new line thing is like still not working, and I think that the slash is the wrong way. I don't remember which direction the slash goes. Yeah, it was this way, but I don't know why it's like not going on to the new line. Sorry, my brain is just dead today. So we're just gonna have to deal with it this way, but I promise that the code on the website works. But we made some changes to the journal entry and we want to commit that to GitHub, right? So what we usually do is like we do git add and then dot and then git commit made additions to our journal entry. So we can see here that we have those like git history in here, but let's say that we want to just automate this entire process. So let's create a flag that every time that we like add a journal entry, it just automatically commits it for us, which is super helpful. So let's create a flag called push. This is going to be the last thing we do because we're like nearing up on time. So CLI.flag, and we're going to put in the different things that you can use. So we have P for push, and then we also have the word push itself. And then we're going to give it a help message. So help commits and pushes the file to remote. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take this push variable and then check if it's true. So if push, we're going to use the git module in Python. So import git. From plumbum.command import git, and then at the bottom here we're going to push the files onto a remote. So first we need to add things. So git add, and then today entry, and then git commit, and then give it a message. And then we're gonna give it a timestamp, and then plus made edits or something with that. Let me just like put in the code for the timestamp, which is also on the website. Okay, where did it go? So Plumbum is basically like a library that allows you to build command line interfaces for the person asking in the chat. So we're just gonna paste this in here. This is like formatting the time, so string datetime.now, And then today entry, we're just gonna format it in the way that we've done before. So now we have all of that, and then we can also push it. So git and then push. I don't have a remote set up on here, but we're probably gonna get an error if we do it. But if you set up a remote, so if you add a remote, git add remote, and then you give it a git URL, then it will work fine. So that's strange. I don't know why this specific one is not working, because all of it's in the git module. Oh, okay. Variable is not defined, but it is defined. That is. Oh, okay. My bad. Sorry. This is supposed to be self.push because it is an instance variable. Okay. Cool. And what happens to your commits if there's no remote? You get this error. This process execution error. Yeah, you need to add a remote. So I am not going to do that because I don't want to, but you guys can. So that's pretty much all I was going to cover in the workshop today. So I'm really proud of you guys for sitting through this and making progress on it. So do we have any last questions before we end the session for today? I don't know. Does anyone else have any other things to add? Yeah, you're welcome. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for attending. I wish you all the best on your projects this week. I'm really excited to see what you make. And yeah, cool. Goodbye.
I got a question.
Oh, yeah, what is it? I think Tashika left, but yeah, what's your question?